The Imperium of Man is held together by faith, hatred, bureaucracy, and one 10,000-year-old chair that desperately needs technical support. The Golden Throne contains technology nobody fully understands, consumes thousands of psychers, holds back a demonic invasion, and keeps the Emperor in a state somewhere between alive and weakened at Bernie's. And it is failing. So what happens when humanity's most important piece of furniture finally breaks? Does the Emperor die? Does he resurrect? Does Terra explode? Does the entire Imperium collapse? Or does an exhausted tech priest crawl behind the throne, unplug it, count to 10, and accidentally delete human civilization? Today, because I am apparently qualified to diagnose ancient psychic machinery using the same skills I used to restart my router, we are examining what happens if the Golden Throne fails. The answer is not completely confirmed, because Warhammer lore treats reliable information like the Imperium treats employee well-being. But the likely outcome is a catastrophic chain reaction involving demons, galactic darkness, and possibly the most aggressive chair malfunction in fictional history. Even the lore veteran should stay, not for education, for the vibes. The Golden Throne is not merely a fancy life support system. It began as part of the Emperor's secret Imperial Webway project, his attempt to build humanity a safer method of galactic travel that did not require sailing through the warp. The warp is basically an emotional ocean filled with sea monsters, except the sea monsters can possess your navigator and make the walls grow teeth. The Emperor wanted humanity off that particular cruise line. Unfortunately, Magnus the Red discovered that his father was not answering his psychic phone calls, so he smashed through the Emperor's protections to deliver an urgent warning. The warning was technically useful. The delivery method was equivalent to driving a tank through someone's kitchen because they ignored your text. The breach allowed demons into the human-controlled webway, forcing the Emperor and his forces into a desperate war beneath the Imperial Palace. After the Emperor was mortally wounded fighting Horus, the throne was repurposed to sustain him while continuing its psychic functions. Today, the throne performs several extremely important jobs. It sustains the Emperor's ruined physical body. It helps maintain the psychic barrier beneath the palace. It is tied to the continued function of the Astronomicon, and it consumes thousands of psychically attuned people every day just to keep the entire nightmare running. Pro: it prevents the immediate destruction of humanity. Con: it runs on human souls and nobody can find the instruction manual. 9 out of 10 engineering, -1 because it eats the maintenance staff. The really comforting news is that this is not just a hypothetical problem. The Golden Throne is actively deteriorating. Its systems are ancient, impossibly complicated, and built from technologies that the modern Imperium can barely recognize, let alone repair. The people responsible for maintaining it are essentially performing religious rituals around a nuclear reactor, while praying that the correct incense fixes the coolant leak. Things became so desperate that powerful Imperial figures conspired to bring a Drukhari homunculus to Terra to examine the throne. That is like discovering your hospital cannot repair its life support machine, so you abduct an immortal torture elf from the nightmare dimension and ask him to take a quick look. Drukhari homunculi are experts in biology and keeping people technically alive under circumstances that make death look like an attractive loyalty program. Naturally, this plan went extremely well and caused absolutely no problems. That was sarcasm. The entire Vaults of Terra storyline revolves around desperate efforts and conspiracies connected to the failing throne. So the Golden Throne is not a reliable machine awaiting a freak accident. It is a 10,000-year-old psychic life support device held together by prayers, sacrifice psychers, and the Mechanicus equivalent of hitting the side panel. The clock is already ticking. Unfortunately, the clock was built during the dark age of technology, so nobody knows what the numbers mean. The most immediate result is obvious. The Emperor's physical body probably dies. He was mortally wounded by Horus and has remained upon the throne in a permanent state of undeath ever since. The machine sustains what remains of him, while psychic sacrifices keep its grim processes operating. Remove that support, and Big E may finally take the dead nap he has been postponing since the siege of Terra. This would already be the greatest political and religious crisis in human history. The Imperium does not merely treat the Emperor as its ruler, it worships him as a god. Entire worlds organize their civilization around the belief that the Emperor eternally watches, protects, and judges humanity. Then one morning, the Ecclesiarchy receives an email reading, Subject: God has stopped responding. Best case, the High Lords conceal it and pretend everything is fine, which is basically how the Imperium handles every crisis. Worst case, the information escapes and 10,000 competing prophets immediately declare themselves the Emperor's true replacement. Humanity would speedrun every religious civil war simultaneously. The Emperor dying is not even the worst part. Beneath the Imperial Palace lies the damaged entrance to the webway. After Magnus's spectacularly well-intentioned workplace accident, the Emperor was forced to hold back the demonic forces pressing through the breach. Malcador briefly took the Golden Throne during the siege so the Emperor could confront Horus, and the effort consumed one of the most powerful human psychers ever to live. That should tell you everything you need to know about the chair. Sitting on it briefly killed Psychic Gandalf. The Emperor has been doing it for 10,000 years, while also functioning as humanity's lighthouse and processing an industrial quantity of screaming souls. 0 out of 10 ergonomics. If the psychic barrier collapses, demons could pour through the broken webway and directly into the heart of the Imperial Palace. Not onto some distant border world, not into an expendable mining colony called Misery 47. Into Terra. The most densely populated and politically important planet in the Imperium would suddenly have a hell portal beneath its government headquarters. Imagine every demon currently pressed against the barrier finally receiving a notification saying, "The palace gates are now open. Free entry. Children eat free." Terra could become another gigantic warp rift, taking the center of the Imperium with it. The Emperor apparently planned for this possibility, because, unlike the modern Imperium, he occasionally considered what might happen tomorrow. Vulcan was entrusted with a contingency connected to the Golden Throne. In the event of Terra falling, destroying the throne could plunge the planet into a rift in reality, denying it to the enemy, and annihilating the forces gathered there. This is usually associated with the Talisman of Seven Hammers, a psychic doomsday failsafe. Essentially, if Terra becomes unrecoverable, the Emperor's backup strategy is delete Terra. Not evacuate it, not negotiate, not restore from an earlier save. Select planet, right-click, permanently delete. Pro, Chaos does not capture the throne. Con, neither does anyone else, because Earth has been turned into a metaphysical crater. 10 out of 10 commitment, absolutely terrible disaster insurance. Whether this contingency would automatically trigger, still functions correctly, or requires someone such as Vulcan is not completely settled. Which is comforting, because humanity's survival may depend on a 10,000-year-old bomb whose activation instructions are classified. Even if Terra somehow survives, the wider Imperium faces another tiny inconvenience. Interstellar civilization stops functioning. The Astronomicon is humanity's psychic lighthouse. Navigators use its light to guide ships through the warp, where distance, time, and physics are more like casual suggestions. The Astronomicon itself is housed within the hollow mountain on Terra, while official accounts describe the Emperor upon the Golden Throne as keeping its light alive. Without it, Imperial ships would not all instantly explode, but long-distance warp travel would become vastly more dangerous, unreliable, and restricted. Fleets would become stranded, reinforcements would disappear, trade routes would collapse. Agricultural worlds could have mountains of food and no safe way to deliver it. Hive worlds containing billions of people would discover that their food supply was scheduled to arrive aboard a ship last seen entering literal hell. And we already received a preview. When the Great Rift formed and the Astronomicon dimmed, Terra became vulnerable enough for Khorne to launch 88 demonic cohorts against the throne world. That was the light temporarily failing. Now imagine it does not come back. Every Imperial Navy captain becomes a blindfolded Uber driver attempting to cross the Pacific while sharks scream conflicting directions directly into his brain. The Imperium is already barely unified. Messages can take decades to arrive. Warp storms isolate entire sectors. Planetary governors frequently forget which taxes they owe and accidentally create independent empires. Remove reliable warp navigation, the Emperor and Terra at the same time, and the Imperium does not simply lose a battle. It stops being one Imperium. Ultramar might remain organized under Guilliman. The Lion could establish another power base. Space Marine chapters would protect whatever territories they could reach. The Ecclesiarchy would split into competing interpretations of what the Emperor's death means. The Mechanicus might insist that everything is under control, while Mars begins quietly backing itself up onto an external hard drive. Some worlds would remain loyal, others would declare independence, others would join chaos, and millions would simply disappear from Imperial history because nobody could reach them. The Imperium Nihilus already demonstrates what Imperial territory looks like when the Astronomicon becomes difficult or impossible to see. Isolated systems forced to survive with limited communication and reinforcement. A permanent blackout would spread that condition across humanity. The Imperium would not necessarily die in one dramatic explosion. It might fracture into thousands of smaller states, each insisting that it is the true Imperium while firing at all the others. So basically, the Horus Heresy again, except Dad is finally dead, and nobody remembers where the family house used to be. And now we reach the part where Canon carefully places a smoke machine over the answer and leaves through the emergency exit. Nobody knows exactly what happens to the Emperor after his body dies. There are several possibilities. Possibility 1, he simply dies. His soul could be destroyed, dispersed, or consumed within the warp. Humanity loses its ruler, its psychic protector, and possibly its best defense against chaos. Very straightforward, extremely bad. Possibility 2, he returns. The Emperor is commonly connected with the Perpetuals, humans capable of returning from death. Some believe the Golden Throne may actually prevent his regeneration because it never allows his body to finish dying. Under this theory, turning off the chair might allow him to resurrect. Which means the Imperium has spent 10,000 years sacrificing psychers to prevent its god from trying turn it off and on again. However, this is not a guaranteed outcome, and even if he returned, there is no promise he would return quickly or in recognizably human form. Possibility 3, he becomes a full god. For 10,000 years, unimaginable numbers of humans have worshipped the Emperor. Because belief and emotion influence the warp, some theories suggest his death could complete his transformation into a true warp deity. Humanity's god might finally awaken. Which sounds excellent until you remember how warp gods work. Khorne represents courage and honor, but mostly produces screaming axe enthusiasts. Nurgle represents endurance, but gives everyone weaponized diarrhea. A god created from humanity's faith, sacrifice, authoritarianism, and 10,000 years of desperate warfare might not emerge as a friendly golden grandfather handing out hugs. It might emerge as the galaxy's largest manifestation of religious zealotry, suffering, and compulsory overtime. The Emperor could save humanity, or humanity could accidentally birth the 5th worst manager in the warp. So how cooked is humanity? Let's review. The throne fails. The Emperor's body dies. The webway barrier may collapse. Demons invade Terra. A doomsday failsafe may destroy the planet. The Astronomicon goes dark. Warp travel falls apart. The Imperium fractures into competing successor states. And the Emperor's soul either disappears, resurrects, or turns into a god whose personality may be 10,000 years of psychic agony compressed into one extremely angry weather event. Survival rating? 2 out of 10. And those 2 points are mostly because Guilliman owns several spreadsheets. The loss of the Golden Throne would not necessarily mean every human immediately dies. Humanity is spread across too many worlds for that, but the Imperium as a unified galactic civilization would probably be finished. What remains would be isolated, surrounded, and forced to survive without the institution that has ruled humanity for 10 millennia. The Emperor may protect, but the warranty on his chair has definitely expired. So that is what happens if the Golden Throne fails. God dies, hell opens, Earth may explode, the lights go out, and every Imperial administrator discovers that the apocalypse does not have the correct approval stamps. In any other setting, this would be the final catastrophe. In Warhammer 40,000, it is probably scheduled for a Tuesday between 2 orc invasions. Subscribe to GrimDerp for more Warhammer lore explained by a silly little man standing far too close to the interdimensional reactor. Comment what you think happens to the Emperor: death, resurrection, godhood, or something significantly more cursed. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and the entire galaxy is connected to one dangerously loose power cable.